Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon.
Waalaikumsalam. Good afternoon, Doctor.
Hi.
Waalaikumsalam, Prof.
How are you guys? How's everyone?
Alhamdulillah.
Good. Okay. So it's after 12, right? So I guess we can get started. We've got about 24 of our classmates online. Okay, so for our session today, our 1 hour session, we're gonna, as I mentioned, we'd like to continue with our assignment 2 work, in-class work, inshallah, to help us prepare and do well on the second assignment. Ideally, if we were on campus, this assignment would be a lot more interesting because we'd be able to, or I would be strongly encouraging you to go off campus and then actually meeting people, discussing with them, getting a much better firsthand idea of what these issues that you're going to be developing these programs for, what they would be like. Okay, so this is supposed to be really a community issue, a community project where you go into the community, whatever community, however you define community in this case, and really try to understand this issue that they're facing, and then try to develop a program to address that issue using a youth development or a positive youth development approach. So that's the idea. Of course, we are in COVID-19 era, new reality, new normal. So we are, of course, having to make adjustments as we go. But I'm sure, inshallah, you guys will do fine despite the limitations and so forth. Okay, so the idea today was to let you, give you a chance to present what you've got so far in terms of your topic and then your interview questions. And this is really to benefit you, to help you to better prepare for your field work. Okay, so when you go out and you actually interview these people, to make sure you're asking good questions, you're going to get good responses, good data that will help you to do your proposals. Okay, so I hope that we can use this hour for you guys to present, and then just for myself as well as your course mates, hopefully, to give feedback on how you are doing so far. Okay, that is the plan for today. So I will just start with volunteers. I'm just going to ask anyone who wants to can volunteer to submit. You can share your screen and then you can present your topic and questions. I did notice that I've got about 13 submissions so far on Putra Blast. So there are probably a few more coming, I would assume. So would anybody like to volunteer to go first to present what you've got so far?
Me, Prof.
Go ahead, Hanim. The floor is all yours. You can just go ahead and share your screen if you like.
Okay. So, this is what my partner and I are going to do. So we are currently wanting to do the topic regarding premarital sex intercourse and associated factors among youth.
Okay.
So this is my partner, Irma Shuryani. So the questions we discussed that we really need to do the questions like mula-mula tu warm up dulu, lepas tu macam panas sikit, lepas tu macam cool down sikit, something like that. And then for the first thing, of course, we really want to ask about what do the person think about premarital sex.
Okay.
And then at what age do they get themselves involved in premarital sex? And if premarital sex is common for them, will the attraction change when they get married? Because, they have been doing it before marriage. So does it going to change when they are currently married with their own spouse? And in their opinion regarding the relation, is there any relation between premarital sex and the addiction to pornography? And what do they think of other factors that lead to premarital sex aside from the addiction to pornography? Because when we are looking at the topic, and most of them at the first stage would say that the factors that lead to premarital sex would be the addiction to pornography. So we really wanted to know if there is something different in Malaysia, especially that lead to the youth to do premarital sex.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, if they are doing the premarital sex, and we are also gonna ask, and this is where the climax is, when we are asking what is their opinion regarding unnatural sex, especially when it is done before marriage. So for those who didn't know what is unnatural sex is sex luar tabi'i. Unnatural sex, according to Act in Malaysia, so unnatural sex can be done by the legal married couple, but if they don't report the act, the intercourse with the pejabat agama, so it will tak ada masalah lah, it will have no problems. But when the unnatural sex happen before marriage, and then someone even reported the case to pejabat agama, then it will be something a crime in sex lah, sebab unnatural sex ni dia macam kita buat seks tapi bukan seks yang natural. Maksudnya macam penggunaan objek, using object, and then doing sex in unnatural way lah, bukan sepatutnya biologically-nya lah. And then we are also we will be asking them how do they feel after doing their premarital sex, because according to the case study and also the journal that we read, it is said that after doing premarital sex, most of them didn't have any feelings. It is just something that they do. So we are trying to know, why did they do premarital sex if they don't feel anything after that?
Yeah.
So it is just a waste of time. So we are trying to figure that out. And we are also going to ask, are they aware of the risk of engaging in premarital sex? Because as we know that married couple in Malaysia, if they wanted to get married, they will undergo some tests like HIV test, like syphilis test and whatsoever. But when they're doing their premarital sex, of course, it is something that they do without their consent. So are they aware that they are doing the sex with protection, or anything regarding to protection lah? So that is why the ninth question lead to we are going to ask them what do they think about safe sex and raw sex before during premarital sex intercourse. Because just like if they are not aware of the risk of engaging in premarital sex, then of course they will do the raw sex. But if they are if they are aware, then they will do the safe sex. And if they are not aware, maybe they will do the raw sex. But then some people, even if they are aware of the the risk of engaging in premarital sex, but then some people just have this we call it fetishism.
Yeah.
Okay, fetishism, that they love doing raw sex better than safe sex. So that leads to the 10th question, like, have they ever thought of stopping doing premarital sex, or would they just go with the flow until they met the women? I'm sorry, I think we have to change it until they met someone they want to marry.
Okay.
We put it women here because the interviewees are both male at the age of 23 and 25.
Okay. Okay. So you've already identified who you want to interview. That's right. Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we already asked the both of them, and then both of them are okay that we are going to interview them, and we also forwarded these questions to them,
Okay.
and we plan to interview them by next week.
Okay. All right, honey. Thank you very much. You did a very nice job with the questions. It's of course a very important topic. Oh, can you leave the questions up? I just wanted to comment on them.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a few things. There's just a few things in there I just wanted to mention. So in terms of your topic, it's obviously an important topic. We know young people, even now in Malaysia, are sexually active. So this is something that's of course relevant to young people today. And there's a lot of risk factors associated with it. Okay, so I think in terms of establishing why you want to study this topic, I think it won't be hard for you to find reasons. There's health reasons, there's psychological reasons, there's of course religious and spiritual reasons. There's a variety of reasons why this is an important topic. So I don't think that you'll have any problem with that. In terms of your questions, I would just advise you that when you do this kind of a program or this kind of it's sort of like a mini research study because you're trying to get data that you're gonna use to develop a program. So of course your program is not going to be for one sort of simple program that you want to do on this topic. You can't really cover everything in one program, right? So it's enough. I think it's really enough just to really understand why they're engaging in it, right? And maybe you can begin to develop a program around those core reasons, those basic reasons. So I think you've done a really good job of that. And I can see you've gotten a lot of your information probably from reading literature on it. Okay. In terms of your questions themselves, I would just advise to be careful about like question number one. Okay. Question number one, why do you think that question might not be worded so effectively? Now, of course, this might be translation. Like if you ask it in Bahasa, maybe it'll come out differently and it'll sound better. But if this was a question you're going to ask in English, the language is a little bit problematic. Can you guess why?
Because it may lead to close-ended questions.
No. I mean, if you compare it to the other questions you ask, like the other questions you ask, most of them are very good. They're open-ended, but yet they're focused. You're sort of directing the young person, the respondent, or whatever you want to call it. You're directing them to a particular topic. So they're going to have to talk about that topic. Even though it's open-ended, they can say whatever they want, but it's still a directed question. This first question is so general. What do you think about it? Right? They can go in so many different directions that it might sort of get you off track a little bit, right? Because again, you really want to understand the root causes of it. Why are they doing it, right? And that's really what your interview is about. So if you start off by asking a very general question like that, it might be a little bit problematic. They might start talking about something that's not really related to what you want to find out. Okay. And then you have quite a few questions here. So, you're going to have to, you want to make sure they don't spend too much time on one question. Okay. So for example, you might just want to start off like number 2 is a good question because it gets them into the interview slowly, but it's a very direct question. It's easy for them to answer. Those are the best questions to ask in the beginning. So like the first question, okay, so the second question said, what age did you get involved? You may also want to ask, how often are they do they partake in this activity? How often, not only when do they get involved, but how often do they do it, right? Because you'll definitely find a difference if someone has been doing it for many years and does it regularly, as opposed to, well, maybe they just tried it once. It's very different. The reality will be very different, right? So they might help to better understand, how often they do it. You can even ask other questions like where do they live and where do they, engage in this kind of activity? Who are the people they engage with? A little bit of just sort of descriptive questions to start with, so you have a better idea of their background. Then you start to ask more of the open-ended questions. Okay. So like number 3 is a good question, a very good question for them to think about. But I wouldn't ask that so early on. I think I would ask that later in the interview, because that's more about their future, right? So after you've talked about what they're doing now, then you can start asking questions at the end about their future. Have you thought about how this is going to affect you when you get married? Like it's more of a future question. So that would be probably better towards the end of the interview. All right. Okay, and some of the other questions, yes, definitely pornography plays a big role in it with many young people. Okay, probably not all, but of course there's a high percentage. There's no question about that. So I think those are good questions to ask. I'm not really sure why you want to bring in the issue of number 6, only because, again, that sort of seems like a topic that's extra to what you're trying to find out. Like you just want to understand why they're involved in premarital sex. You want to get into other issues related to like unnatural sex and stuff. It seems like it's a little bit too much. It's a little bit too outside the core issue. All right. So I don't know, maybe number 6, you may want to consider, it may not. Okay, I leave it to you, but that might get you off track also. All right. But question like number 7, those are very, very, very good questions. The risks are very important questions. Do they understand the risk involved, and stuff like that? Again, and also understanding the background of these people too. I mean, if you're, for example, if you know that they come from a Muslim background, you may want to ask them something about, are they, how do they feel about the fact that they know this is against their religion, stuff like that. Again, you want young people to think about things like feelings, think about getting them to reflect on it, understand why are they doing it, and have they thought about all these different factors. Okay, so all in all, I think you did a very nice job, and I think it's going to be a very interesting interview, and so I look forward to seeing the results. So do you have any questions for me, or do any of the other students in the class have any other questions or suggestions for Hanim?
I think no one have the suggestion.
Yes, just one more thing, Hanim. What's important is that, like for questions 4 and 5 about pornography, you may want to start, rather than asking what is your opinion regarding the relation between, you may just want to ask them about it. So do you watch a lot of pornography? And how has that had an effect on your engagement in premarital sex? Do you know what I mean? Like, ask it in a bit more of an open way, Don't assume that they do it. Just ask them, right? And then try to let them explain the relationship there.
Okay.
Interviews like this, the technique is very much like playing dumb. Like you really go into it assuming you know nothing, even though you've read a lot, and you've got, you have some idea of what causes it, and maybe you even know these young people you're interviewing. I don't know. So you maybe even know their background, but you want to go into it really playing dumb, like you don't know anything, and you just want to understand, you want to learn, right? And you really understand why they're doing it. Okay, so that's the kind of mentality you want to have when you go into this kind of an interview. You want to learn from them. I want to learn from you, that kind of thing. Okay.
Okay, Prof. Thank you for the tips and also for something that we want to improve. Basically, maybe you are right that these questions that we have prepared, we didn't really go for like the mentality like, okay, we wanted to know the background or whatsoever. Probably because we knew these people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I assume that. and don't spend too much time on all the background questions. I didn't mean to say, you have to ask all these background questions, just a few just to get the interview going and to have a little sense of where they're coming from, especially as it relates to the topic, So like, I think one question that's very important is how often are they engaged in it? That's a very important question because that might, that kind of question, the answer can, lead to things like, well, if they do it like a lot, maybe they're addicted, maybe they have sex addiction, and that's a real issue among young people, or maybe they've just begun, maybe they just tried it, it's young people, they're involved in a lot of experimentation and stuff like that. So you just want to get an understanding of where they're coming from.
Okay.
Right? But it's an important topic. So I know maybe it's a little uncomfortable for people to talk about, but it is an important topic, especially since this is a class on youth development. We have to be able to talk about these important topics. So, all right, thank you, Hanim, for sharing and for for starting us off.
All right.
Great. Okay. Good luck. Who would like to go next? Anyone else?
Me, doctor.
Me.
Whoa.
Me.
Whoa. So much volunteerism today. Okay, great. Whoa. Amirul just beat everybody to it. Okay. Whoa.
Mio, ni boleh tak aku screen share? Aku ada betulkan soalan sikit tadi.
Okay. Yeah, you guys can take numbers. So Mimi will be next, and then I saw also who was it? Nabila? Who was the next one? Somebody else. Okay. Who's going to speak? Is it Effie or
Effie?
Okay, Effie. Yeah, I saw your.
Okay.
Saw this
So
one.
our topic is LGBT among youth in Malaysia. We chose this topic because LGBT is one of the issue that been ages ago in Malaysia, but it's risen up lately. So my group member is Muhammad Amir Ashraf bin Isa and me, Effie Mas Ajami presenting. So this is the question that we are going to ask. So first is, can you tell a bit about your background? Because actually the interviewees is my very close friend, but I think I don't really know their background. So I don't know further about their background. I know what is her name, something like that, but I don't really know deep about her. Okay. Then the question just like Hanim punya, dia ada macam big question, which is more to, it's kind of sensitive question, but I already sent the questions to her, but she said that it's okay. I don't think this is sensitive question because I don't want to hurt anybody. The second question is, what do you think about the acceptance of LGBT in Malaysia? Because I just want to know their ideas about LGBT in Malaysia. Then since when do you notice that you are special and different? This is more to personal question because we don't know, different person have different time to notice that they are special. I don't mean that they are special in kind of way, but it's something like, because I just want to address the word that doesn't hurt anyone. So that's why I use the special and different word. Then what leads you to involve in LGBT society? The next question is, how do you cope with the society perspective about LGBT? Because we want to know that what problem there. How do LGBT society perspective about the societies around them toward their sexual orientation? How do you avoid the negative stereotype towards LGBT? Then how the acceptance of your family about your sexual orientation? What do you think about human rights and LGBT are interrelated? Which is, this one is more to comment. It's public question lah. I think it's common question, which is just want to know their ideas about human rights and LGBT. What is your life goals? Who are you in next 5 years? Because even though they are special, but I believe that they have their own life planning. Then have you ever been isolated because of your sexual orientation? Do you accept if your future spouse involved in LGBT before? Because because we already did an interview with my friends. Then she said that she wants to get married with a man, which is it means that you're macam still lagi this is just for fun. I mean, LGBT is just for fun for them. They still want to marry with maksudnya masih ikut fitrah manusia lah macam tu. And is LGBT affect your youth development and your career? Because I believe that some in particular country they're really against LGBT, just like we Malaysia also against LGBT, but whether it will affect their youth development and career or not. So that's why we ask this kind of question. And the last one is your advice toward youth in Malaysia that involved in LGBT society. I mean that maybe they want to change, but they don't really have the strength to change or something. So maybe the advice can help them to be can think better and more rational. So that's
okay.
all.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so I have a few questions about your questions actually.
Okay.
Yeah, this is another sort of sensitive topic. My first question to you would be, what is it that you're trying, who are you trying to develop the program for, and what will the program be about? In other words, are you planning to develop a program for these young people or for society about these young people? And then what is the focus of the program going to be about? Is it about coping? Is it about understanding yourself? Is it about so that would be my first question, because you're asking, the reason I say that is because you're asking a lot of questions that are in many different areas, you know. So it's not that many of the questions are good, they're good questions, but they're not that focused. And so I'm just trying to really understand what your program is going to be about.
Our program will be focused on their more to psychological things toward the LGBT society.
Okay, so when you say psychological things, what do you mean? Psychological things is not very specific.
I mean, it's like bukan talk macam how are you going to say that? Because I don't want to
awareness,
encourage people to awareness, but for their society. It's not for their society, which is the LGBT society, because I don't want to welcoming people to our society to accept this kind of things. So okay. I think they need to change slowly. So it made awareness for them, because some LGBT society, they do intercourse sexual, but some of them is not. So maybe it's awareness for them who already did their intercourse sexual to avoid it, and for the not didn't try yet, so to don't ever think to try something like more macam bagi diorang awareness of pasal LGBT.
Yeah, okay, I see your point. Okay, so if that's the case, I think you may want to focus your questions more on their experiences being in this community, or in this choosing this way of life, or whatever you want to call it. You really want to if it's about awareness of what it's like and then you want to share that with others, I think you want it to be a bit more experiential. So you want to talk about, like, what was it like for them growing up? How did they first begin? When did they first begin to think that they were, this way? What made them choose to actually engage in these activities? What were some of the influences? Did they look at things on the internet? Did they meet people? That's the kind of, I think if people had more of that kind of awareness, and there is actually research out there that has really gone in depth into understanding how early experiences in family, and especially with parents, can influence how sort of sexual orientation develops, or however you want to say it. So you may want to ask them questions about, growing up and their relationships with their parents as well.
Okay,
Go ahead.
do you mean by asking them more to like personal question?
Yeah,
I mean, the experience and more to personal question.
more to what? Sorry.
Experience. I mean,
Yeah.
what did they experience when they live in this kind of society?
Yeah, and well, again, is it?
Oh.
It depends on your focus of your program. But think about what you want to focus on in terms of the program. What kind of a program do you want to have? Do you want to deliver? Okay, and that'll guide more of your questions. In other words, is it you want people to understand the experience of being in LGBT, or do you just want to understand what this community is like, this LGBT community is like? Because your questions, they seem a bit more towards just understanding what it's like, the community is like, but not so much on the individual experiences of LGBT and how they become LGBT and all that.
Okay.
So I think you just need to probably focus on one or the other, and then develop your program. Clearly have a clear goal for the program, what you want to achieve in the program, and then sort of adjust your questions in that way.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for your advice.
Okay. Sure. No, again, it's another good topic. I mean, it's an important topic that we shouldn't run away from. We have to deal with it. And the best way to start is to really understand, where these people are coming from, why they, are, feel the way they are, why they engage in the activities that they do, the influence of community, the influence of society. These are all really important questions to better understand this issue. So I think it's a good start. I would just, try to just, again, have more of a clear focus. All right.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Sure. Okay, good job, Effie. And who's your partner again? Sorry.
Amirul.
Amir. Okay, Amirul. Thanks, guys. Okay. So next we have, who's next?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So my partner and I, so basically I will do this task with Nabil. So we decided to do on a topic how materialism affect the youth psychologically and socially. So basically the main focus of our topic is that we want to relate how materialism may affect the youth basically mentally lah, like mental health issues. So the possible interview question are, the first one, first of all, we won't use every question because we want to make it short, but I just do the backup in case some of the question might be not suitable or that need to be added or something like that. So the first one, do you follow or subscribe any celebrities or influencers on account on your social media? If yes, who are they? So for the second, do you get influence to own the stuff that they post on social media? Example, product reviews, gift, and their own products. Like for example, Asfa Harry, he recently made a candle, his own products named Nyala. So for the third question is, have you ever feel like you need to own certain stuff even though you won't be using them that often? The fourth question, have you ever feel like you are missing out because you do not or cannot buy the stuff that you want when it is in trend right now? Next, do you think it is necessary to cut your daily expenses in order to buy the stuff that you want? Does your current circle of friends also hold the same values as you? Example, like the same influencers, you like the same influencers, or always updating each other about the things that you bought. So basically, we left this question like, like a very general one, because we wanted to know what are their answer for the previous question. Then we will specific it more on this question. So next, have you ever feel that sometimes it bothers you quite a bit when you cannot afford to buy all the things you like? How do you view people who does not possess in trend stuff? Are they outdated, or do you think it is not necessary to judge them? For the ninth question, do you think one of the most important achievements in life include acquiring material possession? Do you enjoy sharing the things that you have bought or own with your friends? What is your thoughts on people who wear counterfeit products? Basically, counterfeit product is, that's product that are fake and unauthentic products. So for the last question, do you think your life would be better if you own certain things that you do not have?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mimi. It's a good set of questions. So you're trying to address the issue of materialism. Now, if you're going to do a program, what would the program be about? I mean, you're not going to have a program on materialism. So what would the actual program be about?
Maybe more to mental health issues. Like basically, we want to, some kind of awareness for the youth.
Okay. All right. So if that's the case, you definitely, in your questions, you definitely want to mention that you want to tie their behavior on with these questions about attachment to material stuff with any particular mental health things they may be experiencing. So, that's why I think you have to, the wording on some of your questions is too close-ended, actually. You need to make your questions a bit more open-ended. So instead of asking them, do you follow or subscribe, just ask them who, okay? And then instead of saying, do you get influenced, okay? Of course, but to that, they're just going to say yes or no. So you may want to say, how do these people influence you? Or how do you get influenced when you see these posts on social media? How does it make you feel? What do you do? Have you ever felt like you need to own certain stuff? Okay. If so, why? Right? If they say, oh yeah, I always get that feeling. Okay, so then follow up with, and if so, why? Why do you feel that way? Right? Because you want them to really explain to you and to tell you. And if you ask all these very close-ended questions, you're not going to get a lot of in-depth kind of responses. Have you ever felt like you're missing out? Again, that's a how do you feel question. Just ask them how they feel. How do you feel about when you can't buy the stuff that you want? Oh, it drives me crazy. I can't sleep at night. Then you can see, oh, does it cause you psychological? You're not going to ask it, does it cause you psychological problems? But they say, oh, I get so angry, I get so frustrated. Oh, okay. Then you can begin to see that it's definitely having an effect on them, right? Or maybe they get very depressed, right? Again, these are psychological indicators that this stuff really is really bothering them and really is causing them problems. Do you cut your daily expenses in order to buy all these things that you want? How much do you cut? That's still a close-ended question though. You can, again, some of these questions you could just add a why. So do you think it's necessary to cut your daily expenses? Yes. Okay. Why do you think that way? How do your friends influence your behavior online? Instead of saying, does your circle of friends hold the same values? You can just ask, how do your friends, or how does your circle of friends, what kind of things do they do? Do they do the same things? Stuff like that. How do you feel about not being able to afford? Yeah, that's a similar question to the earlier one. 8 is a good question. How do you view people who do not possess those trendy things? Okay, so just try to adjust the questions to be a bit more open-ended. Okay, not so much on yes, no kind of answers. All right. And then try to link,
Sorry.
and then try to link them to those psychological issues. Does it, again, you want to see what is the outcome of that? How does that make you feel? Does that, how does, does it affect your ability to, to do things? Is it, does it cause you jealousy? Does it cause you frustration? Again, you want to try to make that connection with these different kinds of mental health issues. All right. Because then when you go to develop your program, you have a much clearer idea of what kind of problems they're facing. Maybe it makes them jealous. Maybe it causes them to steal, right? Or do, really, really those kinds of behaviors, right? And then you can clearly see the connection. You can you can develop your program based on that, right? So maybe it's financial management program. You may find out at the end of the day they're just not very good at managing their finances. So they need to be, or they don't have enough discipline. They need to learn self-regulation and discipline on how to limit their spending every month or something like that. Okay, so it can lead to those kind of programs.
So basically, Prof, the roughly idea, we haven't decided what kind of program yet, but the roughly idea is that maybe we want to do a program that, like a session on how to manage your money. Maybe the example of the programs, like what are your needs versus what are your wants. So something like that, but we haven't specified it yet.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then definitely include questions on like budgeting, how much they budget every month, how much do they set aside for the things that they want, how much do they spend, on, their necessities as opposed to their, right? So some of those questions you'll have to also include, all right? And then you can ask these other questions, because then you find out, oh, they're spending way too much money on all these things they don't need. Then you can ask these kinds of questions. It's obviously they can't say no. So there's some sort of psychological effect. But you may want to start off with just some of those budgeting questions to find out, whether they know how to manage their money, right? So you may want to add a couple questions related to that.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Okay.
Great. Amina.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Okay, Mimi. Good job. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so let's see who's after Mimi. Najwa.
Okay, hello, good afternoon, Prof.
Yes, hi, Selena.
Yes, me and my partner, Nur Azli Najwa. So we chose topic, the influence of social media on suicide rate among youth.
Wow.
Okay, so why we choose this topic is because we believe that social media is commonly used all around the world. And we are sure that everyone aware of the pros and cons of these social media things. Okay. So to make it more specific, we relate it to suicide issue as the consequence of social media, since it is also one of the common issue among youth. Okay, so for the interview questions, we plan to divide it into 3 categories: social media, suicide, and the relation between social media and suicide. So the reasons why we divide it, because since there are two, we would say, common issue, which is social media and suicide. So we wanted to know the interviewee's perspective on each issue, which is social media and suicide. So the first category is social media. The first question is, when is the first time you created your social media account? Okay. Secondly, how frequent you spend your time with your social media? Third, do you expect for many responses, such as number of likes and comments every time after you uploaded your picture or any status? Fourth, how many responses usually you will get after uploaded your picture? And the last one is, does the number of responses affect your emotional state? And oh, by the way, also, we prepared quite extra questions, because just in case anything, just like Mimi said just now, for backup. Okay, so for the second category, suicide. Firstly, have you ever thinking that your existence in this world is useless? Secondly, have you ever thinking about attempt suicide? followed by, did you ever attempt to harm yourself in any way? Fourth, do you think you are having depression? Why is that so? And the last one, besides social media, do you think that your surrounding affects you to harm yourself? And the last category is relation between social media and suicide. So this category, we combine both of the issues in one question. So the first one is, have you ever felt discouraged when you receive less response, such as the number of likes and comments in your social media? Because this first question we are going to ask because we believe that every person who upload any picture or status or story, for sure they will expect for some responses from others, right? Including myself also lah. Okay, secondly, do you think that spending too long times in social media could lead to depression? Explain your reason. So why depression? Because we believe that from depression, it will lead to suicide. Okay. Thirdly, social media could influence an individual to have the idea of attempting suicide. Do you agree or disagree? Justify your answer, meaning give the reasons. Fourth, do you personally aware that social media could lead to ideation of attempting suicide? And the final one is, who do you think have more thoughts to attempt suicide because of discouragement from social media, girls or boys? Yes.
Okay.
That's all for our questions.
Okay, thank you. You guys are picking really good topics. This is another very, very serious topic. So I'm really glad to see your choice of topics are excellent. These are all very important topics. So these are good questions. So, the only thing is that many of them, most of them, in fact, are very close-ended. You're going to get very short answers, very yes and no. So I think you need to, again, like Mimi, go back to the wording of the questions. And I can help you now do that. We can just run through some of these, and I can show you how. But before I do that, I want to ask you, do you know who you're going to be interviewing yet for these questions, for this interview?
Specifically haven't yet, but we target on the youth lah, maybe our friends or anyone.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because suicide is a very heavy topic. Of course, suicidal ideation and having thoughts of suicide is actually quite prevalent, but I'm just afraid that you may not get anybody who is really, for example, like say you just choose a friend or whatever, which is fine, but that person may not have had any experience with suicidal thoughts or ideation, so they won't be able to really answer the questions very well. So maybe either you can find somebody who has had some serious problems, psychological problems related to this topic, or you just change it a little bit, not necessarily to suicide, but you focus more again on mental health or on depression or something like that. I'm just afraid that you won't get really people talking about suicide per se, because maybe not everybody's.
Bro.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but
no,
actually my partners, Razlin, she has a friend that is having this problem.
Great, perfect. Okay, that was my question. Yeah. So so that's fine. That's why I'm saying you need to choose your participants wisely. So yeah, if that's the case, then definitely you can do this. You should do this topic. It's good. Okay, so just look at some of your questions. The first ones are good because you want to know basically, how long they've been using social media, how frequently they do it. But it's good to ask questions instead of saying, do you expect to get responses? Okay, say, when you post something, what is your reason for posting? What do you expect in return? What kind of response do you hope to get? All right, you want to ask those kind of more open-ended questions and let them explain to you rather than forcing them to answer a certain way. Okay, that's the importance of asking open-ended questions, right? It gives them the freedom to answer however they want according to their situation, their reality. If you ask closed-ended questions, it forces them to answer a certain way. Okay, so just try to adjust the questions so they're more open-ended. What do you expect? Instead, do you expect? What do you expect? Do you expect to get a lot of responses? Do you expect to get a lot of likes? Let them answer. Okay. How many responses will you usually get? If that's a fine question, just follow it up. Okay. So how many responses will you usually get? Oh, I'll usually get, 10, 15. How does that make you feel? Okay, do you hope for more? Why do you hope for more? How do you feel if you don't get the number of responses you're hoping for? That kind of thing. So again, this is very much a psychological issue. So you really want to explore their feelings, their emotions and stuff like that, because it's definitely going to affect them if it doesn't meet their expectations. So instead of number 5, does the number of responses affect your emotional state? How does the number of responses affect your emotional state? Okay, it's just one word, but it makes a big difference. It makes a big difference. Okay, because if they just say, yeah, it affects me, does the number of responses affect you? Yeah, it affects me. Well, we didn't really learn anything. We just learned it affects them, but how, we don't know, right? Then you want to explore how, and then let them explain, oh, I feel so depressed. Okay, why do you feel depressed? Oh, I thought people would like me, they don't like me, or whatever it is, they're going to explain. Okay, yeah, what do you expect from the responses? Okay, and then same with suicide. So have you ever thought about, okay, have you ever thought that your existence in this world is useless? Okay, why do you think that? All right. Have you ever thought about attempting suicide? How often? When did you begin? When did you first start having these thoughts? What brought on these thoughts? When was the first time you felt that way, and what really brought it on? Okay. How serious are your thoughts about suicide? Because there's some young people that they have suicidal thoughts, and they even talk to other people about it. When I was trained as a social worker, they always trained us to, if we had a client that came to us saying that they wanted to commit suicide, we were always trained to ask them very specific questions, like, how do you plan to do it? Okay, and it sounds like a very dark question, like, why would you ask? But because we wanted to gauge their level of seriousness, right? Because there's some young people that just say it. They just say it because they want attention. They need attention. They need people to pay attention to them, right? To listen to them and stuff like that. There's others that are very serious about it. And so if you say, well, how are you planning on doing it? Then they'll say, oh yeah, I've thought it all out. I'm going to buy this particular drug. I'm going to overdose on this drug, or I'm going to hang myself, or whatever it is. If they've really thought about it at that level, then it's very serious. Okay. So you can sort of, gauge that as well with them. Have you thought about it? How often do you think about it? When did you first think about it? Right, stuff like that. Do you feel like are you having depression? Why is that so? What makes you depressed? I would also ask them about social media. Basically, when you're on social media, how does it make you feel? Do you feel happy when you're on social media? Does it make you sad and depressed? And what are the kinds of interactions that you have on social media that make you feel that way? Okay, so there's a lot of open-ended questions you can ask, right? Have you ever felt discouraged when you receive less response? Again, I wouldn't ask them, have you ever felt discouraged? I would just ask them, how do they feel when they don't get the response that they're expecting? And let them answer. Let them answer. Okay. Do you spend a lot of long hours on social media? How does, the more you're on it, do you feel better or about yourself, or do you feel worse about yourself? And why do you think that is? Okay. So if you're going to ask those kinds of very close-ended questions, always follow it up with a follow-up question, like, why do you think that is? Or, can you give an example of that, or something like that? All right. So let them really share their experiences with you. Okay. Then you'll be able to get good data that you can really develop a good program with. Okay. Yeah, like at the end, I mean, I like the way you finished up your questions there. Again, they can be more open-ended, but do you think that, too much social media use is leading to your depression? Ask them at the end, not until, save it to the end, but just ask them clearly, and if they say, oh yeah, I think it's definitely bad for me or whatever, then you can say, well, have you thought about, getting off social media and using it less? Oh, well, yeah, I have. Okay, why haven't you? Oh, and then you'll get the answers like, oh, it's too hard, or I feel like I'm addicted to it, or, all my friends are on it. You'll get those kind of answers. Okay, so I think you've got a really good start here, good foundation, and I think you just need to tweak them a little bit, the language, stuff like that. Good interviews is really important on how you ask the questions. That's why I'm focusing so much on that. You can tell how you ask the questions is going to give you, all that really good information. That makes all the difference when you do it. Okay.
Okay, Prof. We take note on that.
Okay. Yeah, you can. This is
Correct.
being recorded, and I'm gonna upload it after the class. So if you didn't catch everything I said, you can go back and watch it again and just make notes.
All right. Thank you so much, Prof.
Sure. We've got about 5 more minutes. If I guess we got. Is there anybody else that wants to go quickly? One more, or are we done? Is that it? Nobody else wants to. No. Does anybody have any questions about anything that we've discussed? Anything that I've said? Any questions? So yeah, based on what we discussed, I would just again remind everyone, focus on the program you want to develop, and make sure your questions are going to give you that information that's going to help you to develop that program. Okay, so like especially with Effie's group, you know, I think try to be a bit more clear about what kind of program you want to, you know, what is it that you want, what specifically within that topic of LGBT do you want to address with your program. Okay, and then ask your questions accordingly to that only. Don't try to ask everything. Yeah, because you really want information that's going to help you to develop that program. If you get information that's like so dealing with so many different topics, it'll be much harder for you to develop a good program. Okay. So thank you for sharing, all you guys who shared. Did a very nice job, a very good start, and I'm really excited to see how they turn out, especially because you're all doing, looks like you're all doing very good topics, very interesting, very relevant topics to youth development. Okay. Anything else, or is it lunchtime?
Excuse me, Prof.
Oh, maybe yeah.
I'm just wondering, is it okay with you if after this we do some correction on the question, then we send it to you on WhatsApp? Is it okay with
Totally
you?
okay. Sure. Boleh.
All right.
Boleh,
All
boleh.
right.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Okay.
Prof. Excuse me,
Yes,
Prof.
Selena.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Those who already submitted their questions in the Putra Blast, and then after this, we are going to make corrections, right? Some of the
Yeah.
corrections. So do we have to resubmit it or no need?
No, this is just for your assignment 2, really. It's to improve your, you know, to make sure you do well on your assignment 2 and you get, you know, your good data. What you submit on Putra Blast, I will just use that for like extra credit points. Like I said, a lot of these little assignments I'll just use for extra credit. So the fact that you submitted it is fine. It's enough.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So after this, it's just a matter of, you know, trying to improve the questions and then just getting that good interview data. Okay, that's about 1 o'clock, kids. So inshallah, see you all next week. Have a nice long weekend and a happy new year to everyone.
Okay, Prof. Thank
See you next year. See you next year.
Yeah, see you next year too.
Okay, inshallah. Okay, assalamualaikum.
Salam.
Bye.
Waalaikumsalam, Prof. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Have a nice day
Really?
ahead.
You too. You too.
Happy New Year, Prof.
Thanks. You too. Take care.